Let's bring in Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired General Jack Keane. General, thanks for being here.
Yeah, great being here.
You know, I had Connie Rice on this show last night, and she said President Putin needs Trump more than President Trump needs Putin. You agree with that going in?
Yeah, pretty much. First of all, Putin initiated this meeting. So what's the rationale here? What's really changed? I think a couple of things have changed. He has seen President Trump in action. He watched him take decisive military action to support the Israelis and really take down and end their nuclear capability, at least for a few years. And secondly, he's seen the president make a decision to provide military assistance, significant military assistance to Ukraine, and he is threatening some pretty tough tariffs and sanctions to go along with it. So I don't think it's too hard to conclude that Putin is motivating and trying to stave off the tariffs and the sanctions. Well, he can do that real easily because President Trump for 6 months has been trying to accomplish one thing: a temporary ceasefire, which Zelensky has already agreed to, so then they can begin the hard work of end-of-war discussions and all of the issues surrounding that. Putin walks in here and says, okay, I agree, we'll go to a ceasefire. Well, obviously no sanctions and no tariffs. I don't think he'll do that. We all want him to do that. President Trump wants him to do it. I think what he's really about is trying to delay the tariffs and the sanctions as much as possible under the cover of negotiations, maybe offering some attractive deals, given that land that you described. By the way, that was very, very accurate in terms of what the stakes are in that land and that key terrain with those 4 cities. If they took those 4 cities, the terrain beyond that is all farmland. It's not defensible, and you have a direct route to Kharkiv, as you pointed out. So it's very attractive terrain for Putin. But he would likely introduce other things to deflect the sanctions. A meaty discussion has already been discussed about strategic nuclear weapons. Obviously, that's not the issue here. But is it worthy having a discussion about it? Yeah, likely at some time.
You know, Putin, obviously former KGB, he's met with 5 different presidents, some 48 different times. So he has negotiation in his blood in trying to get what he wants. You go back to Reagan in 1986 and Reykjavik, where he walks away from that summit in Iceland with Gorbachev. And a lot of people characterize that moment as kind of really an important part of his presidency. The fact that he could get up and say, this isn't working, I'm walking away. It then leads to the Moscow summit where they get the big deal between Reagan and Gorbachev. If Trump says, I'm not buying it, it's not working for me, and he gets up and leaves, that could be powerful too.
Yeah. Well, good things can come in that decision. And we shouldn't think that that decision, okay, you're not going to go to a ceasefire, you really don't want peace here, you're just trying to charm me, a lot of rhetoric, more promises, more empty promises. But he's got the hammer, and the hammer are the tariffs and the sanctions. That could bring Putin back to the table pretty quick. At the 86 thing, I mean, Gorbachev shocked Reagan. He put complete disarmament of nuclear weapons on the table. That was stunning. However, he wanted the Strategic Defense Initiative, the technology we were moving towards to defend ourselves against that very thing. He wanted that to go away, and Reagan said, no deal. But guess what? Out of that came 2 positive deals. One, strategic nuclear disarmament did take place, not completely, but significantly, and intermediate missiles as well, the cruise missiles, the tactical missiles, etc., completely gone as a result of that. And the catalyst for that was what you said. It was walking away from that deal. So walking away isn't the end. It can be the beginning, because here comes the sanctions, here comes the tariffs.
From Ukraine's point of view, and the president keeps on saying that they're trying to strive to get to a second summit, obviously with Zelensky at the table. Yeah. Here's Secretary of State Rubio about what they think about security guarantees.
Well, to achieve a peace, I think we all recognize that there'll have to be some conversation about security guarantees. There'll have to be some conversation about, territorial disputes and claims and what they're fighting over. All these things will be part of a comprehensive thing. But I think the president's hope is to achieve some stoppage of fighting so that those conversations can happen. To have a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, you will need agreement from both Ukraine and Russia.
You know, the security guarantees get sticky. It's not going to be a part of NATO. We're not going to have Article 5 where we have to rescue Ukraine, but Ukraine's not going to do it unless they have some assurance that they're going to get protected.
Yeah, it's the history of Putin here that's really the concern. We had Minsk I and Minsk II agreements after 2014, and Putin violated both of those agreements, and they were very favorable to Putin, pushed by Obama on the leadership to accept those agreements. He's violated every ceasefire in Syria, every single one of them. They were air attack ceasefires. So it's not surprising that Zelensky, the United States government, want to see, and so do the Europeans, some kind of security guarantees. What does that mean? Intelligence, aerial overview for sure, possibly some Western forces on the ground. Now, the war's not going on. There's a complete ceasefire, and they're there to provide guarantees. Obviously, the equipment that Zelensky needs to make certain he's going through a buildup. China, certainly Iran and North Korea continue to build up Russian forces during a ceasefire, right? So, yeah, security and guarantees are very important. And that's a major negotiated item, as you indicated. We can only throw so many items on the table here, but they would all be under discussion to give Ukraine some confidence that there is some teeth here in terms of keeping Putin back from violating the ceasefire. And then if he violates the ceasefire, there's all sorts of things you can do. Fast track to NATO, some kind of response to that, et cetera.
So I'll be on Air Force One flying over with the president. I'll talk to him on the way there. And believe it or not, we're in negotiations with the Russians to have Vladimir Putin on special report tomorrow night.
Good for you.
We will see.
That will be a coup, my friend.
That would.
Good
Thank
luck
you,
to
General.
you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.